Okay, abusunya be mako aba sonko so edeba POG Media so yembonra eye yensemu no Ken Ofori Atta finally wa surrender wa confess aba abonten wako OSP office no lawyers they communicate aba abusunya enye asem keto akra o chere se osre OSP say omanemre emre pemu no obeba na waba beyi ensema no en emre na open no OSP enhwe na omano up till May no obeba na chese waba abeyi ensema no na chese law bia ese office bia wa face abusuya yensa momre no sisia no OSP nso aba eyi na free wanted list so a OSP nso age atum se sa na all can dia why ready on so train no omra no meyi nsema no course or yes on man so dia wanted list no or the beba abonte it is an OSP add the timer or pese or the bano atum asisi ano ye pese mamoko na mokoko ti ensema e course na answer na be kono o ensem kan bia fa share your comment section like na share ma for front so answer into me enkabi aha POG Media so bedamase.
Coming up next, Office of the Special Prosecutor makes a U-turn and removes former Finance Minister Ofori Atta from the wanted list. We'll tell you how the Special Prosecutor arrived at this conclusion and indeed what lies ahead. But just to establish some context in this, the Special Prosecutor just about a week ago declared the former Finance Minister Ofori Atta a wanted man. This is exactly what Kesi Jabing, the Special Prosecutor, said in that public announcement at the press conference just about a week ago. Take a look.
OSP is unconvinced that the purported medical letter transmitted by Mr. Ofori Atta through his lawyers to the OSP represents a medical report to the effect that Mr. Ofori Atta is incapacitated or is so sickly and invalid to the extent that he is physically unable to return to the jurisdiction without imperiling his life. The OSP declares Kenneth Nanaya Ofori Atta a wanted person. He is a fugitive from justice. The OSP will take all necessary legal steps to secure his return to the jurisdiction and attendance at the OSP. And this is to Mr. Ofori Atta. You have two choices. You can either return to the jurisdiction voluntarily or the OSP will enforce your return. Mr. Ofori Atta, the OSP did not raid your house on Tuesday, 11 February 2025. Our intelligence points us to state that the purported raid on Mr. Ofori Atta's residence was staged, or at best, an imposter action in an attempt to court disfavor for the OSP and to derail the investigation.
After this press conference last week, and the Special Prosecutor declaring the former Finance Minister Ofori Atta wanted, a number of reactions. You had the Minority Leader Alexander Penyomakin say that Ofori Atta was traumatized and hearing that he's been declared wanted and a fugitive from justice and so on, and where he's receiving medical care. Well, you hear now the Special Prosecutor making reference to a communication from the lawyers of Ofori Atta indicating that Ofori Atta is going to return on a particular date, a definitive date that has been communicated now. We have a copy of that letter, which we're going to show to you, reason why the Special Prosecutor has taken that decision and communicated that Ofori Atta is no more a wanted man. This is the reference. On the 12th of February 2025, according to the Special Prosecutor's statement, the Special Prosecutor, as we do know, declared Nanaya Ofori Atta, former Finance Minister, a wanted person and a fugitive from justice on the ground that he failed to indicate a reasonable time of his return to the jurisdiction. Although he had been informed by the Office of Special Prosecutor that he was a suspect in various suspected corruption and corruption-related cases, and he had been directed to physically attend the OSP in Akroma on a specified date and at a specified time for interviewing, on 18th February, that is today, Ofori Atta transmitted a communication through his lawyers to the OSP by which he stated a definite date of his voluntary return to the jurisdiction. So this is what makes the difference right now. And this communication today from Ken Ofori-Atta, the former finance minister, through his lawyers to the special prosecutor, that definite date has been communicated. And from what we do know, according to the special prosecutor's statement, it marks a major shift from Ken Ofori-Atta's previous intention of remaining outside the jurisdiction indefinitely. On 18 February 2025, the OSP acceded to Mr. Ofori-Atta's request as it deemed his stated date of voluntary return to the jurisdiction reasonable in the circumstances. On 18 February, OSP attendance at the OSP taking into account Ken Ofori-Atta's stated date goes on to say, consequently, Ken Ofori-Atta has been removed from the OSP's list of wanted persons, and the OSP ceases to consider Ken Ofori-Atta a fugitive from justice, pending his voluntary return to the jurisdiction as stated earlier. So because of this latest development, this 18 February communication from Ken Ofori-Atta, that is what has led to the special prosecutor taking that decision to take him off the wanted list. But then again, you want to know which date exactly is Ken Ofori-Atta coming, and which date did he communicate to the special prosecutor, for which the special prosecutor says, well, this is a very reasonable date as stated. So I'm going to go with it. I'll take you off the wanted list. This is it. We have a copy of a communication from Ken Ofori-Atta's lawyers to the special prosecutor today, which has led to this decision. Here's what we do know. Based on that statement, this is it. We acknowledge, quote, receipt of your letter dated 17 February 2025. We respectfully indicate that our client post-match date for his return cannot be any time before 6 to 8 weeks after the possible surgical intervention in March, stated in the Mayo Clinic letter. And this Mayo Clinic is where Ken Ofori-Atta, we understand, according to his lawyers, is receiving medical care. And he is scheduled to undergo surgical intervention in March. And according to this letter, it has to take between 6 to 8 weeks. Our client hopes that taking into account the surgery date of 20 to 21st, or the 20th of, or the 21st of March, and recuperation period, he should be able to come back to his jurisdiction between 14th May and 30th May 2025. So this is the date that has been communicated to the special prosecutor, that between 14th of May and the 30th of May 2025, this period, Ken Ofori-Atta, all things being equal, is expected to return to Ghana to attend to the in-person invitation of the special prosecutor to answer questions on a number of corruption-related issues. So this is what has changed the entire communication and conversation about Ken Ofori-Atta. No more a wanted man, because per the communication between 14th and 30th of May 2025, he's expected back into the country after recuperating from the surgical intervention that he is scheduled to undergo at the Mayo Clinic. Well, just to refresh our minds, this is what the special prosecutor is expected to ask Ken Ofori-Atta questions about. First off, the National Cathedral expenditure, $58 million. That's the least. Because when we mention this figure, you should bear in mind that the $58 million is what has been spent on the current National Cathedral site for a number of things, including the architectural designs, consultation, and so on. But when we talk about the amount of money that has been paid, for instance, to these persons or institutions that were suffering that intervention of demolition, you know that there were some buildings at the National Cathedral site that were demolished. The former Secretariat of the Scholarship Secretariat of Ghana was demolished. We have a number of judges' bungalows, we understand 11 of them also demolished. Also, you could talk about the Comsys, one IT firm. They had their building demolished. Number of apartments there as well, demolished. We had the Deputy Shraj Commissioner's residence also demolished as well at that same National Cathedral site. All these had to be paid compensation. We understand the ACEP, Africa Center for Energy Policy as well. They are their office there as well. And we understand, according to the former Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, all these persons have been compensated. That is the cost to the Ghanaian, you and I, the taxpayer as well. So this 58 million is just the amount spent on the site. But other costs as well, we understand, are going to be factored in. Apart from that, there's ambulance scandal. That's one as well that the special prosecutor says Ken Ofori would have to answer questions on. The ECG Beijing Hill BXC contract. That is one as well that he's going to be questioned on the abrupt termination under what the OSP says are unclear circumstances, raising the matter of transparency regarding the decision to terminate that contract. We know this, the GRA SML monitoring deal. Manasseh Azora-Awini led that investigation together with the team at the Fourth Estate. The former president, Akuffo, issued a directive for KPMG to audit this particular deal. There was a recommendation that was made. It's been over a year now. We're seeing this. Now, special prosecutor is getting into it as well. So there are 5 issues that Ken Ofori would have to answer to the special prosecutor when he returns, all things being equal, between the 14th and the end of May 2025, all things being equal. Well, Alexander Panyomakin made a comment on this in Parliament earlier today, but let's engage Martin Pebo, as a private legal practitioner joining us on Zoom right now. He's a member of the 5-member committee oral preparatory team. Lawyer Martin Pebo, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. This is the latest from the special prosecutor. Now, because of this latest communication from Ken Ofori, says he's taking off the wanted list, and bearing in mind as well the earlier communication that he gave just about a week ago. How does all of this development strike you?
So let's say it's a sensible way of bringing this impasse to an end. Yeah, it's a sensible way. I say a sensible way because, at least Ofori is now communicated a date. Albeit it's in May. I mean, May is not that far. It will come soon. So OSP taking his name off the list. It's a sensible response. It's okay. It's all right. I mean, at least now we've all seen how citizens have waded in, making their opinions clear. OSP has made his, or the office has made its stance clear. I think on the balance, it's okay. The debate has been good for our democracy. So it tells you that what I've come away with from this whole debate is that at least we've made it clear that though we are looking for accountability, though we're trying to hold Ofori accountable, it must also be reasonable and fair. We shouldn't say that because we want him to come and account for all the things we are not happy with, then it means it should be done anyhow. So it's okay. Yeah. And also maybe if I should add, we need legislation to guide
for the return of Ken Ofori, reason why the special prosecutor has taken that decision to take him off the wanted list. But counsel, stay with me. Don't leave us as yet, because the next issue I want to engage you on briefly. Coming up next year on Ghana Tonight, President John Dramani Mahama takes the lead in declaring his assets and liabilities as publicized, urging all his appointees to do so latest March 31 or risk their appointment. There's more on this shortly. Let's hear from President John Mahama earlier today. And in fact, in the company of the Auditor General, he declared his assets, in fact, submitted his asset declaration form to the Auditor General earlier today. And this is what he said. Take a look.
Simple but brief, very important act of presenting my completed assets declaration forms to the Auditor General as required by Article 286 of the 1992 Constitution and the Public Office Holders Declaration of Assets and Disqualifications Act 1998, Act 550. I've also taken this step to send an unmistakable signal to all public office holders, especially those that I have appointed, that I take the declaration of assets very seriously and expect full compliance from them. I've asked the Chief of Staff to send word to all appointees to ensure that they declare their assets by the end of the first quarter of this year, that is by 31st March 2025. I wish to stress that any appointee failing to meet this deadline would face severe sanctions, not excluding removal from office. Even as we strive to hold past government officials accountable for their stewardship, I deem it even more imperative to enforce anti-corruption among our present public office holders. Charity, they say, begins at home. I'm therefore determined to take the necessary steps to ensure that we fight corruption vigorously so that the precious little resources that have been entrusted to us by the Ghanaian people are used only in their interest. There have been issues raised about the effectiveness of the current assets declaration regime. We must take advantage of the current constitution review process to strengthen the assets declaration regime to make it more relevant to changing times. I believe that we must move to a regime where the assets so declared can be published before and after public office, so that the phenomenon of unexplained and overnight wealth, obviously earned through the proceeds of corruption, can be checked.
Well, that's President John Mahama there. But what does the law on asset declaration say? We've had a number of persons refer to the current status of the law as an incompetent, impotent law in the fight against corruption. Why is that? Dennis Proberi Wadan Esquire is here with me. Dennis, what's the nature and status of the law now?
Well, so Alfred, the law is still as it is, and many are particularly not enthused about its current shape and form. They want more to be done, and it's the reason the NDC itself, in its 2024 manifesto, had made a promise that they are going to review and enforce the asset declaration regime as captured under Chapter 24 of the Constitution and also under Act 550. So you'd hear the President make comments that seem to suggest that moving forward, we may see this particular law in a different shape or form, other than how it has been. He talks about public declaration. This has been a conversation on the table for quite some time. We've had prominent people in this country who are in the anti-corruption space make the recommendation that no, moving forward, we do not have to run with the current regime, but that it has to take a different shape or form. But let's look at what Article 286 of the 1992 Constitution says when it comes to declaration of assets and then liabilities. Yeah, it means that as a public officer, you have to declare not just what you own, what you owe, not what just you have, but also your liabilities as well. And it is a requirement of that a person who holds a public office mentioned in Clause 5. So when we get to Clause 5, you see the categories of people who fall within this particular scope of this article shall submit to the Auditor General a written declaration of all property or assets owned by or liabilities owed by him, whether directly or indirectly. It continues to provide for the time within which this must be done. So when you look at 286(1)(a), it talks about the fact that it has to be done within 3 months after coming into force of this Constitution or before taking office, as the case may be. Right. So we are already in the Constitution is already in there. So the first part really does not apply. What applies to us now is that before taking office. So what it means is that the appointees would have to do this before taking office. As in before being sworn in by the president, essentially? Before assuming office. So if assuming office would mean that you have to be sworn in to officially be the beginning of you taking over office, then you have to do this before taking office. Right. As to whether that is done or not, that is a different conversation that we can have, but that's what the law provides. It also provides that it has to be done at the end of every 4 years. So it means that when you are appointed today for this particular tenure of office, by the end of the 4-year tenure, you have to declare your assets and liabilities as well. Also, at the end of the term of office, if your office ends, unfortunately for you, in 4 years, it means that you have to declare your assets as well. Now, the law does not only end there. It also provides for what happens to a public officer who fails to comply with this particular law.
Right.
Now, 2862 says that failure to declare or knowingly making false declarations shall be a contravention of this Constitution and shall be dealt with in accordance with Article 287. So the following or the subsequent article provides for the punishment for anybody who makes a false declaration, that is, if you under-declare or over-declare knowingly, and for persons who fail to declare. That is also captured under the law. Now, the declaration made under Clause 1 of this article shall, on demand, be produced in evidence before a court of competent jurisdiction, before a commission of inquiry appointed under Article 278 of this Constitution, or C, before an investigator appointed by the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice. And this is part of the portions of the law that have been pointed out by anti-corruption crusaders who say that for the fact that the only time that your assets or liabilities declared only come up will be at the point where it is needed as evidence and on the orders of a court or before a commission of inquiry or an investigator appointed by Suraj, it only means that you really don't get to know the worth of people as in when they are getting into office and getting out of office.
Right.
It's only when there's an issue.
Absolutely.
So they do not think this is really the best. Now, let me quickly take you to the very last part, which talks about the category of persons. So it will include, number one, is the first gentleman of the land, the President of the Republic.
As he has done today.
As he has done today, taking the lead and urging his appointees to also follow suit. The next is the second lady of the land, or gentleman, as the case applies. Now we have a lady. So the Vice President of the Republic, the Speaker of Parliament and the Deputy Speaker, and a Member of Parliament, Minister of State or Deputy Minister, Chief Justice, Justice of the Superior Court of Judicature, Chairman of Regional Tribunal, the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, and his deputies, and all judicial officers. It doesn't end there. It continues to list ambassadors or high commissioners, secretary to the cabinet.
Okay, abusunya wene ensema ekoso ewo political highway so eye Ken Ofori Atta sisi anede wa apie ewo eye OSP anima sisi an bibia ededa na kwemu yebe dama sesamo jepene kokoti sa odui ede emai aha POG Media so medamase.